Hello everybody and welcome to another episode in the Celtic Now and For podcast. My name is Ryan Clifford and joining us on the podcast this week is Robert Boy once again. How are you doing, mate?
All good, Ryan, thanks.
Oh, not bad, mate. And also we've got a special guest this week, very well respected actor, Scottish actor and also massive Celtic fan, Gianni Capaldi. Big man, how you doing, Gianni?
Great, fantastic, as well as can be.
How's things over there? All good?
Aye, good. I mean, spend a lot of time in the house with the 4-year-old and the 1-year-old, so not the best, but thankfully it could be a lot worse.
Mm. And obviously it's a hard time, as I spoke about before we come on air. We're all trying to keep busy, so I really appreciate your time coming on, because I know it's a really hard time and obviously families are at lockdown and stuff, so I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, it's good to be on. I know that it gets hard and it's there's a lot of depression out there and whatnot, and people, especially for Celtic fans right now, there's a lot of depression. I think the lockdown just get a lot worse, so I think we're praying that football gets stopped now. But it's good. It's good to find ways that we can keep busy and things to listen and watch to.
Definitely. Well, obviously yourself, Gianni, early life, Motherwell, Hamilton, grew up that type of. So how was it for you growing up in that kind of area? Was it always football, out playing with the kids? How did you start getting into that?
It was. I played football every day. I mean, I grew up in Hamilton, so you know what it's like. You grow up with a ball and you're playing Kirby and you're playing shooty in, and World Cup. We used to play. I'm trying to get 3 games. We used to play. So we grew up with football. And football, I just love football so much. Football was my life, and I remember I grew up, I played with Hamilton Colts at the time, and then I went to Motherwell, got signed with Motherwell, and I grew up in the youth with Motherwell. So, if I could have redone it all, I would probably be on football if I could. But I had an unfortunate accident. I fell through a glass roof in Spain, and then I cut my leg in half, and it was pretty horrific, and I was in a wheelchair for a while and all that, so that kind of set me back, and I would always, anytime I get kicked in my leg would just swell up. Mm-hmm. So that's, but I was with Motherwell up to about 18, 19, and then, it was like, I think at the time that you could have went in YTSs with different clubs and all that stuff, mm-hmm. but I didn't take that up.
I see when you were at Motherwell, was that through, obviously back in the day, it was always like cleaning the stand and stuff. Were you doing stuff for that with the YTS?
I was on the YTS back then.
Right, okay. Okay.
I was, but I was up to 18, 19. I had to clean the boots and things like that. So
we were talking about that, Gianni, on our previous podcast, just saying that how football players are so, well, now they don't have to do that. They don't have to clean a stand. They don't have to clean boots. And I would say it's taking a bit of realism out of football. That's spoiled nowadays compared to the way, like, say, for instance, Chris Sutton, Henrik Larsson came through. They were very well disciplined, I reckon, back then compared to nowadays. I don't know your thoughts on that one.
Well, it'd be good to see Frimpong cleaning some boots like that. We'd get a bit of a shock if he had to. But no, I do think that was the whole thing about football coming through, and I think it humbles you, kind of thing. So when they probably made it, they would have had more appreciation and know what other folk are going through to get to that level and that stage that they would find themselves. But that was complete old school. I'm trying to remember what else. Obviously the balls and the nets and doing all that stuff. But I remember when the games were on at the weekend, we'd always have to turn up. You'd have to get your tie on and all that. I think, it's a weird thing. One of the gripes I have about Lennon, lovely guy he is and all that. But one of the gripes I have about Lennon was when you're the manager of Celtic, he wouldn't turn up with a tie during a game. And all right, you can miss the odd game without a tie, but you represent the club and you're the manager of that club. When you think about the Ancelottis of the world and, the Mourinhos, they don't turn up looking like they're, just came off the bus and, what I mean? Like, and I remember being a kid and turning up at Motherwell on a Saturday, you had to turn up with your tie, a shirt and tie. You had to turn up with a shirt and tie. So, you know, you're supposed to be setting an example as a manager, you know, instead of sitting. I mean, no, I'm not trying to pick on him because he's got enough gripes right now from people picking on him. So, but talking about different days, you know, and I feel that things have definitely changed in football.
It's definitely changed from obviously back then to now. It's just, I think, well, obviously, it's kind of players are modical now, and they're not getting the jobs done. And I think, like yourself, you were maybe working through that and you wanted to get to the first team, so you worked the jobs. You knew if you got a chance, you can appreciate it a bit more. I don't think that's the same now.
No, it's totally different now. Football's, you know, it's all fancy cars and people think they can break rules and whatnot. And, you know, when you look at Bolingoli, absolute shambles. I mean, you know, the whole country's in lockdown. He jumps in a plane to go to Spain. Mm-hmm. You know, like that's what I'm saying. It's like a lot of folk now think they're above the law. And I think that's the problem a lot of times is as well, is it's not just above the law. A lot of times they think they're better than folk. And, you know, especially Glasgow, it's a very unforgiving place. So even growing up, when there was Rangers players and Celtic players out in the town, you know, there's always potential for, you know, trouble a lot of times, you know, because you know, people, I think West of Scotland folk, they keep it real, and I'm not saying that all Scottish folk do the same, but I think more you don't get away with it in places the West of Scotland, I think, as much, you know, and people would bring you back down and put you in your place, but you know, they definitely are. They're more protected and cotton wool wrapped around them.
Yeah. See, Gianni, you're saying you played with Motherwell at a youth level and stuff like that. How did it go from football into acting? What spurred you on to go into acting after football?
Well, I think I went pretty crazy after when I left. I was about 19, and in a sense I went crazy because, you know, when you play football, you stay off the drink and you do this and you do that. So I kind of went pretty crazy for the next few years in that, and then kind of found myself a bit. And then I thought, well, what do I want to do in my life? I think I went to Caledon University for a couple of years, and I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. And then I thought, well, I'll go to LA. So I went to LA, and I went to Stella Adler drama school out there, and then I was in LA for about 18 years before I moved to Vegas. So it's just takes time to figure out, and then it's a whole new adjustment, you know, because you always thought football was your world. So it kind of takes a minute just to come back down to earth and think what you want to do.
Yeah,
I think
some.
No, you go.
I was going to say to Gianni, I think a lot of young football players now don't see anything else other than football. Where I think they maybe need educated in that way that they might not make it as a football player. That they need to look at other avenues because it's a dog eat dog world in football nowadays.
Aye. No, I agree, and I think that was the time my gran said to me, you know, because I think, you know, you could always join a YTS with some club somewhere, you know what I mean? There's hundreds of clubs in different leagues and whatnot, I'm sure at the time, but it was like one of those ones that my gran's like, no, go get your degree, get your, go get your degree, because then at least that way you can fall back in something, you know. So that's was one of the reasons where I was like, all right, so, you know, I went to Caledonian University at the time, and I think I lasted 2 years and I kind of had enough after the diploma level of it. So, but I mean, it's hard as well because people always think, you know, when you try and think outside the box, people will never really, I don't know, in Hamilton anyway, it's, you know, people think you're nuts, you're crazy, you know, so you're saying, oh, well, I'm just going to go to LA and go to school there. They'll think you're nuts, you know. But I'll never regret it. It was a really good experience, and I felt like you can step outside your sandpit sometimes, and you get to see the rest of the world. It's adventure. It's new. It's refreshing. You know. So.
And obviously, playing Motherwell and stuff. But how did you get involved? Obviously, with a Celtic fan, was that through family? Was it through a young age? When did you think Celtic's a team for me?
Well, actually, when I was a kid, there's a hotel in in Hamilton that my grandmother grew up with that. And my grandmother ran a hotel in Hamilton. She still does, still has it. And most of the waiters in there were all Celtic fans. So I remember I was influenced by them because I grew up in that environment. And one of them took me to a Celtic game at the time, and it was in the jungle at the time, and and we'd have the radio on a Saturday and make sure we're listening to the game at the time, and that's how it all kind of started, to be honest with you. And then my first school was, without sounding old school, but my first school was a Catholic school. My first primary was St Mary's. So when you grow up in Hamilton at the time, if you go to St Mary's, you're a Celtic fan. If you go to the Grammar or whatever, it's you're a Rangers fan. So it was just backwards back then. It wasn't, unfortunately, good things have moved on now. So but back then it really wasn't like that.
And growing up, Gianni, who was your idol at Celtic, and player did you like growing? Your idol, and who was your?
I think Paul McStay was always. Paul McStay was always like. I mean, he was just brilliant, and he was a true Celtic servant, and he was a maestro, as they called him. So Paul McStay was probably one of my favourites growing up.
That was at the end of my era. Well, at the end of his era was at the start of my era. Was Paul McStay. I remember being at the Coca-Cola Cup final with my dad. I was about 12. No, even 12, about 8, sorry. And my dad, my first real big final, my dad's like, "Oh, this is it, we're going to do it." We get beaten penalties, and I was crying. I was like, "Oh, this is terrible." That was the start of my life at Celtic.
Jeez.
Like my first real memory of it. McStay missed the penalty.
Well, a lot of people forget, I was there obviously through Rangers' 9 in a row. And it was a nightmare, being a Celtic fan was a nightmare. Granted we had the double in '88, but it was just that watching them do that 9 in a row was every year they're winning. The Terry Butchers, the Chris Woods, the Gazas, the Mark Hateleys. I mean they really did have a good team, and they had a better team than they probably should have, and that's why they end up going bust. Because obviously if we could go out and spend and then nobody would afford it, and we'd have a better team as well. But I mean, they'd really pushed the boat out financially, and obviously they paid the consequences for it. But I was really hard growing up for them doing the 9, and then that's why I think you appreciate what Celtic just done now. Mm-hmm. If you lived through what they went through, what we went through with them, kind of thing. So, but it's not all been roses with Celtic.
Because it's like, for me personally, I'm always what it's in, right? So I've kind of seen most of success through when I've been a Celtic fan. So like yourself and maybe Robert, you've lived through the 90s, you've seen the hardship side of it, and I've really just seen success. So me, this season, I'm like, I don't like this. I'm used to winning. Obviously, we're going for the 10, and it's as it stands out, it's not working out. So I've kind of not really seen the bad sides, which we hope I don't see. So it's kind of just good contrast to go for your experiences, and then to mine seeing success and then no seeing success. I think it's good to balance that out.
Aye. Well, we've definitely blown the opportunity this season. I mean, I don't see us. There's no way back now. I don't even look at the league table anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm embarrassed and disgraced, to be honest with you, about it. But I can't understand. Celtic. It's Celtic, and I get it, and Celtic means everything. But the people who run Celtic as well, people we say, "Oh, it's business to them. It's business to them." Well, I don't understand, because when you look at Borussia Dortmund fell 5 points behind Bayern Munich. And they had a much better manager than we've ever had in many years. So they fired their manager with falling 5 points behind Bayern Munich because they didn't want to fall any further. Yet, Lenny's still there. Mm-hmm. And we had the perfect opportunity to bring in someone in the international break, months ago. And we just didn't. And that just, for me, is complete it's mismanagement at the time. And yeah, you know, it's not about loyalty to Lennon. Lennon's been a great servant to the club, and we really appreciate him, and we all get behind him. But sometimes that's why. I mean, if you anybody who argues this point doesn't know what they're talking about football, because that way the managerial greats of the world, the Mourinhos, the Ancelottis, they would never be out of job, because if you always stuck with them, they would never leave. But sometimes even the greats get a little bit stale, and bring a new face in and taking away that familiarity from a player, you know, that breeds contempt, or just something fresh and new, then that's what makes teams turn it around. And I believe that if the board acted correctly, instead of this false sense of loyalty, which you're really doing the club no good, then, you know, there's always casualties in war, and Lennon would have been a sorry casualty in war, but it was necessary for Celtic to turn it around, and it just didn't. Stuck with the same regime, same things, same tactics, same ways, you know, and Lennon did everything he could. He just couldn't change it around. I mean, that Ross County game, get beat at home by 2-0 at Ross County. I mean, I just can't understand it. We must have had 10 times what their wages is, you know, maybe more, maybe 15 times. So it's an embarrassment to him. And all we're doing is, if you love somebody and they're failing miserably, you've got to take them out of that position. And, you know, unfortunately, Lenny will go down as one of the managers that lost us the 10. And I understand before it was a different scenario, but now we dwarf any other club financially. And it was mismanaged.
What would you like to see happening, Gianni, at Celtic?
I mean, I think it's too late now for the 10. I got to be honest with you, but we're right now we're still trying to flog a dead horse, and unfortunately we can't get better until Lenny goes.
So what would you like to see happening? Who would you like to see coming in? Would you like to see a new structure put in place at Celtic from top to bottom?
Well, I've heard rumours that the structure above, some folk are stepping down at the end of the season. And I don't want to say.
No, I don't.
I think everybody knows who it is.
Aye.
So I heard, that's what I heard. Some folk are stepping down at the end of the season above management, and then. But yeah, I mean, until, you know, there's talk today about Eddie Howe possibly coming in, and Dermot having a change of mind and want to bring him in early. I mean, we should bring him in early. We should bring it in early. I mean, look, the problem with Lennon right now is there's a cloud. There's been a cloud above his head, a negative cloud above his head for months. And that's when boards are supposed to come in and change it. Now, unless you say we don't want to win anything else for the rest of the season, we don't care. Let them have another cup. Let Rangers win the double. They would have won the treble. I strongly believe if we don't do anything, they would have won the treble if it wasn't for their mishap, you know, against St Mirren. We didn't beat them. We didn't knock them out. So if you want to rely on other folk to stop Rangers winning a double, then go ahead. But that's not what Celtic's made of. And we should be the team, you know, unbelievable, we still can't be chasing. But bring in, if it's Eddie Howe, we bring him in. You know, there's no expectations of a manager this year. So people say, why do you want to come in and manage a club that are going to lose the 10? The 10's lost. So the pressure's off them. They can actually take time and restructure new tactics. You know, I mean, I remember Milan, when Milan were the best teams in the world. They went from Gullit and Van Basten and Rijkaard and Maldini, and Ancelotti was a player with them. They had a year, maybe a 6 or 7 year. Now that's not going to happen to us because we're so financially strong that we can overcome that and we can make the changes quick. But you know, every club has a change. It metamorphs itself into something else, and I think that now is the time. We have a full half season where we could be doing that. So maybe we can get it finely tuned by the end of this season. So next season we come out the traps running, you know. And I think that's what I'd like to see at Celtic. And I think continue with Lennon. We know it's not going to last. He's not going to be there at the end of the start next season. We know that. So let's just bring someone else in. You know, let them go for the cup. Let them try and turn it around. We played Rangers off the park in the first half, yet we couldn't score. You know, but you know yourself, football's a it's like one of those games that you just need that tiny bit of luck. And right now we just don't have it. And even that whole Dubai debacle, I mean, let's be honest, it doesn't matter. There's nothing stopping me going to the supermarket today, but common sense has me not going to the supermarket, hanging out there for 5 hours, so I just wouldn't do that. So the whole thing about flying out to a pandemic and all this, and I mean, and why take Julian? He doesn't need to go to Dubai. There's nothing he can get in Dubai that they can't get back at Lennoxtown or Glasgow. There's nothing. It's a joke. It's an excuse, and he's the one person infected us all.
I think you're kind of the same opinion as most of the fans, to be honest, Gianni. But you've said it in a nicer manner than maybe some of us have vent their frustrations. But we're in the same agreement as you, Robert, that it's things have got to change, because we don't like saying it, but fans are going to think of Lennon as a guy that lost to 10, and we don't want to think about that as Lennon, but that's what some fans will have that in their mind. We should have won the 10 and we didn't. We'll not really forgive you anymore.
I mean, listen, Lenny's been a great servant. He's a great guy. He's went through so much for Celtic, and he'll always have admiration, respect from 95% of from the fans that matter, because you're always going to get fans that don't care and they hate him or whatever. But somebody brought this up when Ronnie Dahlia knew he just wasn't doing it. He put his hands up and says, I just don't know if this is right, and he walked. He agreed to walk. Like, I mean, I just don't see why. I can't understand why Lenny couldn't see that before we lost the league. Like when he says, I can't do this, guys. I just can't bring someone else in. I just can't, again, personally, he's a great guy and he's been through so much for Celtic. Yeah. But don't forget, this is the guy who, when he left us as a manager, says, I can't take this forward anymore. I've done all I can do. Everyone I know I've installed at the club, so you need somebody better to bring this forward, or more experienced to bring it forward. So when we end up taking Lenny back, granted he had to finish off, he had a cup final and he had a league to finish off, but we were ahead in the league, we weren't ahead in the league, but we were there or thereabouts. It wasn't a big difference. And, we were in a final, we already won a cup. He brought it home for us. But 8th of December 2020, I was at Hampden, and we were, I want to say we're lucky, but we didn't play them off the park, and it could have went either way in that cup final against Rangers. So, again, a team of Celtic, any one of the three of us should be able to financially finish second if we manage the club. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yep. No, I agree with you on that. I just feel the professionalism for Brendan Rodgers left has dropped dramatically. Through players, through training, through fitness, I just feel we need a guy of his stature to come in and really ignite the fans again. Because other than that, I feel the season book sales will drop by the thousands, which could be worrying for Celtic financially. And if there's another pandemic, it could be really, really bad on us. And no having Champions League football, obviously having the chance to get into it, I think the Celtic board really need to step up now, because I think we could be in a real bad place if we don't.
I thoroughly agree. Everybody I speak to, I can't see them renewing their season ticket. And some folk have had it for years, but there's also a pandemic. It's not just about Celtic. It's like, you think about it, we've all renewed our season ticket, we've all got 3 strips, we've all got training kits, we've all got this and that. Like, we're support a club. People say, Celtic Sports, we do support the club. But we unfortunately can't make the decisions, the hard decisions. And it's never easy to make the hard decision. There's so many, there's businesses out there that have to, fire folk all the time just to survive because of the pandemic. How hard is it to let your manager go and bring someone else in if you see the club's not doing well? It's the same as any business. You know what I mean? But, and the whole Dubai thing, I mean, I don't even know how that, it baffles me, man. It just completely baffles me. It's like an arrogance,
Yeah.
And I appreciate Loyal coming out yesterday and saying it. And I think the one thing they did wrong was they probably should have done it a week ago.
Yeah.
You know, that's when it should have happened. But, you know, maybe, don't know circumstances behind the scenes and whatnot, but that should have happened a week ago. But it was good that he did.
I definitely agree with you when it comes to, obviously, the Dubai, Gianni. It was definitely something I think we've all agreed with, Robert, in Lawwell's statement. It was not the right statement in a way, but it came out too late, shall we say. I think back here in Glasgow, Gianni, I don't know if you've been about it, full of Scotland's in uproar about it. It's totally, people are saying we're this, we're that, and there's there's nothing we can say about it, because let's be honest, as you say, we shouldn't have went. You don't want to go to the supermarket, we don't want to go and take a dog a walk, this and that, because there's a pandemic. And us as a club should have known, as the club we are, respect, humility, blah, blah, blah. Just don't go to Lennoxtown, as she says, we've got a world-class facility, and just do our work there.
Well, all I know is this, is since the pandemic's been on, I've filmed 3 times at the end of the year there. Once I went to Mexico for a few days. Once I was in Albuquerque for about 2.5 weeks. And then once I went to Minnesota, and the whole Minnesota production got shut down with 30 positives. So what I don't know is how did Julian get tested? How did he end up positive? Because if you do go in your bubble and you do what you're told and you do the rules, then you'll no catch it. If you don't have it, you don't have it. And the 3 of us go away and we train and we go to our rooms and we train and we go to our rooms, we won't catch it. So what happened? How did he get it? Just doesn't he wake? You don't wake up with it. So,
No.
you know, I mean, it's a complete, you know, listen, somebody could walk up to you and whatever, but the reality is they know there's this going on, so why would anybody be allowed to walk up to you? That's what I don't get. You know, how did he get it? Like, where's the negligence? Is it the club's fault? Was it his fault? You know, it doesn't sound like it's the club's fault, because then everybody would have it. It sounds like it was just his negligence. So,
I think it's hard to pinpoint, obviously, what exactly went on, because if they're only ready to train, rest, then, as you says, where is it coming from? Because if they're all following protocols, they're all getting tested, they're all doing the right things, then if they're all in the same bubble, then, as you says, it shouldn't really be happening. But it's happened, and it's no really a good situation considering the form we've been in. And I think that if we were ahead in the league, maybe with 10 points, 15 points, we'd have still got a bit of backlash, but I wouldn't think it'd be as much, because I think it's been rewarding failure in a way. And obviously during a pandemic, it's not a good situation what's happened, is it really?
Is it worth the risk? That's what you got to really count it. Like when it was internationals and we're losing Edward and whatnot, that was out of Celtic's control. You know, we can't blame Celtic for that. That was protocols that the international teams did. But this one was completely on Celtic, and they should just have cancelled it. I mean, that's just, we all know that. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. But everybody can figure out that now is not the time to be flying about the place if you don't need to. You know?
Yeah.
So,
what doesn't sit well with me on it is, I feel like in the middle of a pandemic, when people are struggling for money, to fly a squad of 30, 40 members on a private jet to Dubai for 5-star hotel for 5 days at the cost that I would just say estimate £300,000, doesn't sit right with people that's probably scripting straight to pay for season books for families, who's probably out of jobs now in 80% furlough scheme, who's probably struggled to pay for their season books. And the full fact is they've then went and put the under 18s on furlough now. To me, it doesn't sit right with me in that fact, that it's just, again, blinkered mismanagement from Celtic Football Club, and it's just every day you're waking up and reading a paper and worried what's going to be in it.
Mate, I know, listen, I'm surprised that Celtic haven't said, hey, to all the season ticket holders, we're sending out a kit, we're sending out a Celtic top, a this and that, just to show appreciation. A Celtic top to them must cost, I don't know, £7, £8 maybe. Tops, £9, I don't know what to pay, £10. Who knows? But the fact is, the amount of money people have ploughed into the club, a bit of appreciation he could have done, and it wouldn't have cost him that much money to send every season ticket holder at all. Something, just to say thanks. I think that's what's missing.
Yeah, I agree. Your European trips, Gianni, tell us your best ones and your worst ones.
Robert, what we'll do is...
I caught the glass.
Aye, we'll get a wee break, and then we'll let Gianni go through his wee notes, and then we'll come back for part 2. That's us for part 1. For Gianni Capaldi, we're back for part 2, and now the next episode of the Celtic Now and for our podcast. Thanks, Gianni. Thanks, mate.
Yep.